So, dear colleagues, we will just give 1 minute for participants to settle down, and we will start with our LGMA Paris Agreement video, and then we will proceed with the agenda and other details. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for your patience. So this was a snapshot of our work, a compilation of our achievements at Paris and beyond Paris, or over the past days from Paris. We thought it would be good to start our webinars with this celebrative mode. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability, and I'm also acting as the focal point of Local Governments and Municipal Authorities Constituency. So today's webinar is actually the 17th version issue. We are having this monthly. Every year between the COPs, we are having this monthly calls. Obviously, because of the extension, this is more than 12 sessions now. This session is announced publicly at ICLE's communication channels, newsletters, but also in the LGMA mailing lists. So some of those participants of today's call could be new colleagues, and some of them could be seasoned partners of colleagues from the networks in the LGMA process. So I would like to recall that we are recording the session, and then we are uploading into the website later on. In the format, we are usually going through a presentation for the 40 minutes or so, and then we are opening the question and answer. During the session, you can also type your questions if needed, but we would like to leave the debate at the end of the session. And so today's agenda, which is what we are following as the format, that we are making like the basics, refreshing our memories, especially for those who are newcomers, but we're also keeping some of the new information that has evolved. Then we catch up with what has happened over the past few weeks, and in this case it is 4 weeks. And then we will spend some time in what has happened in the last 3 weeks of the negotiations in the conference, and we would like to connect to the new spirit that we have to work on in the roadmap. We will go through some of the key milestones, especially in the next couple of weeks in July, and then we will also discuss what kind of a scenario we could expect in Glasgow this year, taking into account the latest announcements and updates from the presidency, from UNF Secretariat as well. I think this will also be an opportunity for us to refresh ourselves, and any missing elements, feel free to back up with your interventions or additional points as well. So without further ado, let's recall, first of all, why are we so excited with Paris Agreement? Obviously, the climate action, the UNFCCC, he was here for 30 years or so. LGMA constitution was the first constitution, 95. The reason why we're so attaching ourselves to Paris Agreement is that it is opening a new era for global climate action. It is, first of all, a universal. Everybody has committed to deliver it without any annexes, without any differentiation as such. So the visions are universal. And it's not only an agreement for nations, especially in the preamble paragraph, it says Paris Agreement is a good deal that is encompassing all levels of government and all stakeholders. Secondly, it's also addressing very concretely that we are striving for 1.5 degree goal. So it's very concrete. By the end of the century, we want to reach the climate neutrality as the first step to reach to this 1.5 degree goal. So it's really a transformational agenda. In that regard, everybody has, of course, we are supporting these principles or vision, but everybody has different roles to play. So in that sense, first of all, from the national governments, what we are expecting that the current official plans, what is called NDCs or national determined contributions, these are in fact none of them fit for Paris Agreement. And it's nobody's fault, because all these agreements, all these action plans from the national governments were designed or prepared before the Paris Agreement. If you can recall, it was originally called its intended national determined contribution. So none of those the first phase of the NDCs are bounded with these principles or aiming to comply with these principles. So it's normal that it is not ambitious enough, it is not inclusive enough. Therefore, we expect every nation to bring a new national determined contribution, hopefully more ambitious and more inclusive. And this has to be done before COP. There is nothing to be done at COP about your national climate plan. Therefore, your homework is at home. Whatever happens in Glasgow, whenever it happens, whether it's virtual or in person, doesn't matter. You as nations have to focus your job at home, and local and regional governments will be there with you to make this possible and offer their contribution. And that's the second point. Because we have a preambular paragraph which says we recognize the importance of engagement of all levels of government, the climate action is not anymore a voluntary job for us. In the past 20 years, we were asking for higher ambitions and others, and all this was good if they can do it. But now it is our duty. And of course, duty brings new responsibilities. So we are addressing or inviting every local government in the world to commit for climate neutrality and more ambitious actions towards 2030 that is in line with the global agreed goals. So that is a significant difference than any climate action before Paris Agreement. And finally, it is a transformative agenda which cannot be done by force. It can only be done by engaging people voluntarily and in creating incentives and making them feel that they are enjoying this new civilization, this new transformation, so that everybody share the benefits. It's not just the technology providers. It is not just the specific group of people, but from urban poor to rural communities, everybody should find themselves in so that they embrace this transformation. The COPs, the Climate Conference of Parties, is in fact a body that is assigned every year around October or November, December. And the country who are politically responsible to convene this COP is responsibility to implement the decisions that are adopted at this COP, the Conference of Parties. Therefore, there's a president, which is the host country usually. And the next conference, the host usually of this next conference, is the one who will be the incoming presidency. And therefore, they prepare in a year's time to make up their priorities and define their teams, and then they offer their priorities. So this is a cyclic process. At the moment, officially, the president, the political responsibility of anything but today is in the hands of Chile. And then the next coming one is UK, and Italy will be the pre-COP host. Since Paris Agreement, we have climate action champions, now Gonzalo Munoz and Nigel Topping from Chile and UK. There is unique innovations that the UK government has introduced. They are trying to demonstrate the most inclusive COP. So they have created a number of bodies. They have assigned the Friends of COP, mayor of Los Angeles, chair of C40 is the only local representative there. There are Cities and Regions Advisory Council in the UK, devolved administrations, bodies, councils as well in the UK. Civil Society Advisory Committee also is taking place. There are certain advisors thematically, finance, adaptation, and it's a new appointment last month. Sir David Attenborough, it's a well-known scientist and communicator. He's now having a different mandate. He's a people's advocate. So we have to see what it means. But obviously, it's a new innovation, and we look forward to his contribution to the process as well. And between these two events, actually, there is an interim meeting scheduled every year in the between May and June session, which is preparing the outcome. So over these months, it's more than 16 months now. No, it's even 18 months. That last year we had a June momentum. These were all virtual. And just 3 weeks before, the past 3 weeks, we had a new May-June 2021 conference, which we'll touch upon it soon. We, in a regular process, the number is 26. Obviously, it has happened 25 times before. And every year there is a certain agenda, certain type of events. But there's also uniqueness of every COP, the political agenda, priorities, expectations. Therefore, every COP is a unique COP on its own. And for sure, in Glasgow, it's a momentous that is opening the second phase of the Paris Agreement. So we have adopted our priorities in December 2019 that we want to make sure there is a multi-level action COP in Glasgow. And we have seen that the priorities of the UK government also has evolved in time. Now they have announced 4 priorities, and one of them is collaboration, which is exactly what we are also aiming for. So it's good to see this convergence among those priorities. This was regular process. As we said, we are in extraordinary times. We are all in virtual. No decision has been adopted yet, but there's a lot of things going on at the Zooms or other platforms. What is happening is that we as local and regional government networks are invited to participate in unique models that doesn't have to be the same, but we are participating in the regular UN Climate Secretariat work, the bodies, the workshops and sessions. Then there's a second group, the presidency spatial consultations. Some of them are closed. We as observers are not included, but sometimes we're asked for inputs. And some events are also convened by stakeholders as well, like Climate and Environment Ministerial, the Climate and Development Ministerial meeting in, I think it was in March. And the third, which is one of the most dynamic part, is the action agenda, which is driven by the high-level action champions. This is under the Marrakesh Partnership, an offspring or a product of the Paris Agreement. We have Race to Zero, Race to Resilience, Race to Zero breakthroughs, and climate action pathways, so that there are guidance, there are assessments, there are data, there are new guidance that is helpful for all of us to bring this into our planning at home, also to local action, but also into the NDCs. Hopefully, that's the goal, that all these inefficiencies are designed for this purpose. And final, let's say, catch up of our past existing work is that what do we want to achieve? What did we want to achieve from Madrid to Glasgow? That we wanted to make sure that Paris Agreement is alive and it's in practice. Therefore, we are encouraging to raise ambition through Race to Zero, Race to Resilience, and we want to have new NDCs more ambitious. That is the big part of it. So the second part is independent from Paris Agreement, from circular economy to nature, from food to health system. There are numerous agenda items that we can be relating to local and regional government. So we are working on that. And we are being inspired by other processes. For example, the Biodiversity Convention, there's a number of processes coming up, food and energy summits. The third element is that in the climate space, we want to have new actors. We want to expand, which is through urbanization ministerial or meeting with culture community or youth and education community. And finally, especially with a call from Glasgow, we want to address that the priorities or the outcomes are serving for a just and inclusive society. So climate justice, social equity will be our topics. And these are taking place in a number of fora. We're engaged in events and side events and summits throughout the year. We are aware there are game changers. There are really things that are elevating our work. This was the Biden Climate Summit. This was the NDCP, new NDCP. NDCs coming from the COP process, the Biodiversity Edinburgh process, and time to time we are encouraging that. We're encouraged to hear also from the UN agency. UN Habitat is also addressing and encouraging to have to the urbanization ministerial is coming up to the process as well. So that is what we want to achieve over the course. And I would like to come back to this in terms of, based on the outcome of this major session, what can we make it a bit more outcome oriented towards COP26 outcomes. Over the past couple of weeks, let's recap what has been achieved. First of all, G7 is an important body. It is an informal network, obviously, but it is representing the governments of the world who are the most capacitated, historical responsibility, but also financial and technical resources. So, and the good news is that the country who is hosting the COP this year, climate conference, is also at the same time presidency of the G7, the UK government. And of course, with the comeback of the US to the multilateral system, there are higher expectations. So over these past months and past weeks especially, we have seen a communique from the environment ministers and several initiatives which was pretty strong. There was even reference to the local government and local and regional governments. We had seen finance ministerial committing to divestment and other elements as well. But when it comes to the summit, when it comes to the heads of state level, sometimes things may be a bit different, especially the expectation from vaccine equity, the initiatives that will help for vaccine equity across the world in terms of their commitments for climate neutrality, while we are aware that all of the G7 nations are now on track, or at least committed to climate neutrality, their 2030 process still has to be improved, and especially their support to the rest of the world, person-to-air capacity and historic responsibility. These were the expectations from G7 heads of state. Some of them were fulfilled, some of them are not at the level that were meeting the expectations. But of course, this is a process. There will be additional opportunities. This year, we have seen just a couple of days before the heads of state of G7, for the first time, the Urban Seven, the summit of cities and regions in the G7 countries have convened. The UK core cities have mobilized this or take the leadership. All networks, national networks from all G7 countries were there, and several global networks also supported, including ICLE and others. Meanwhile, the Urban 20, the G20 process, it's been evolving since 2018. They also released their communique. It's important to note that 22 cities from the 14 G20 nations have endorsed this communique, and there are 6 cities from non-G20 countries, 5 non-G20 countries as well. So that's also a momentum being developed further. Parallel to these things, there was another initiative that's coming from Asia, Partnership for Global Goals, the P4G Summit, which is also a regular summit. South Korea Summit, Seoul Summit, has also ended up enormous, exciting announcements. For example, on the first day of this summit, or this green agenda, the Green Week agenda, Minister of Environment and all local governments in Korea, literally all local governments, have united their forces that all local governments in Korea are now committed to climate neutrality by 2050. This is similar to a bit nuanced, but it's similar to the experience of Japan or the experience in the US, so that Korea is one of those countries who are embracing this multi-level collaboration. Obviously, they have their own style and methodologies, but it is good to see before the submission of the Korean embassy that all local governments are also in the 2050 targets as well. On the 5th of June, this is an observance of the World Environment Day. This year, it was the process for UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration, which is bringing nature and the land and other issues onto the process, which is a priority both for G7, G20, and especially in the year of biodiversity negotiations. We also have celebrated a year on of the Race to Zero, which it reached to 4,500 participants from cities, regions, business across the world, with new actors like fashion industry and health sector. So it's really expanding the scope of mobilization. While we were in the UNFCCC negotiations, the biodiversity community was also having their virtual sessions. And in fact, we have to accept and we have to commend that the stakeholder engagement in the biodiversity process is much more advanced in a number of fronts compared to the UNFCCC, the way they are interacting and the way they're interacting with the national governments. And in the case of cities and subnationals, it's even more important because we had achieved from since 2010 a 10-year action plan, which was remarkable. It's one of the most ambitious in any multilateral environmental agreement. And over this 1 year, through the Edinburgh process, supported by or kicked off by Scottish government, supported by the Secretariat of the Convention of Biodiversity, with the networks of local and regional governments like ICLE, Regions for Committee of the Regions, and the final product being endorsed by the UK government and presented to the parties. It has been introduced as a negotiation document. It has been approved with most of the agendas, let's say, exactly copied and pasted from the proposals. And now this is presented, the chair's proposal, as a conference room paper, which is, there's very few brackets, which means these are the points that are for negotiation, which is either take note or approval. But in any case, the spirit, the elements are there. So the advocacy, the subnational advocacy of local and regional governments in the biodiversity process has reached a huge achievement. And then we commend all our actors there and many of our colleagues. And we hope this will also be inspirational for the biodiversity from the climate negotiation as well. Similarly, the biodiversity scientific body IPBES and the climate scientific body IPCC, and the same days released a report that is bringing the scientific community as well. So it's even more important that climate and biodiversity, also the certification process, has more and more interaction and synergy, so that collectively we can accelerate our ambition. During these weeks, we also have heard that the UK government, they have finished their first screening of their applications. We heard there were more than 4,000 applications. It was around 100 relevant to cities and built environment. The first response is that either you are eligible to be screened for the next review, or you are not eligible for the next phase. Therefore, we are expecting that there will be additional iterations, especially depending on the process of the physical or in-person and virtual elements of COP26, which we will discuss in a couple of minutes. So I think in the next couple of months with the presidency, which events will be in the green zone, which events can be in the UK pavilion, in the blue zone, which events could be merged, could be a point of discussion. And we are particularly looking forward to UK partners. Most of the events are done by the UK partners, and they have, of course, this is an area that's not the UN area, the green zone especially. Therefore, leadership and ownership of the UK based organizations are important. In our case, the cities, the networks, and we are proud that so many of them, UK 100, COSLA, LGA, core cities, and many networks have applied for this application, so that we will see a dynamic atmosphere there as well. Other than that, in the UN space, there are important discussions going on: energy, food, transport. Obviously, those ambitious outcomes will also all feed into the NDC, hopefully, that the NDCs will also be benefiting from those sectoral outcomes. And very importantly, we are very happy to hear the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who is a champion of multi-stakeholder engagement, multilateralism, is being appointed for the second time into the UN Secretary General's office. And he will also be sharing among his priorities a new way of work inside the UN system, but also with partners, with the stakeholders of the UN system, including cities and networks of regional governments. So we hope this mobilization will also help us to embrace that these elements will be our resources, that we can be more hopeful that the second phase of the Paris Agreement, with ambitious NDCs, with more ambitious partnerships, we can accelerate our climate action and ambition as well. So that's why we look forward to COP26 being a milestone and opening a new era. Now, what has happened over the past 3 weeks? For those, just to refresh our memories, it's not day-by-day analysis. I will share the next screen with the link so that you can use when you receive the PowerPoint. But this is a bird's eye view about the highlights. So first of all, this was the first time that the climate negotiators have been engaged in a virtual platform. So it's a learning experience, and like every learning experience, there are hiccups, ups and downs. What we have seen that, first of all, this is demanding. This new era of virtual processes is demanding. Why? It needs more time. An agenda has to be discussed in time zones that everybody has to hear, has to provide input. Therefore, it takes more than one event. It could be one event, but in time, 3 times you're discussing it, or you're expanding to a time span. Then it needs more skills. It's not just face-to-face. You have to use ITs, you have to have computers, you have to be familiar with pushing the buttons or muting yourself. unmuting yourself, and it's for everyone a learning experience. And it also has new tools. For example, the UN Climate Secretariat has subcontracted a new software, a new platform, which has new elements. And in fact, there are a lot of features that the delegations were able to use. But of course, to register, to make yourself into the list, to ask the chairs or co-facilitators to hear you, you all have to know how to interact in this kind of softwares and new tools. Therefore, it takes time. And obviously, all these, as we said, from the skilled IT freaks to the old school people like us, it has some challenges, and the most important thing is that we need more patience and tolerance to our partners, to negotiators. And the good thing is that, especially over these 3 weeks, there is more and more openness, that more and more sessions were open for stakeholder engagement. That was good. And of course, that's the second point. A demand brings reward. You deliver a demand and you are rewarded. What was the reward this time? There are more interactions. You can easily interact with the chairs and ministers and all the delegations across the world in a much more easy way. That's, I think, it's because negotiations is to hear and listen to each other. And sometimes in physical spaces, there is even more harder cases, but in virtual times, in the opportunities, there may be more opportunities. Transparency, once again, how many people have registered, how many took the floor, how many times they made interventions. It's much easier to track. It's much easier to monitor in a virtual setting electronically. And accountability. I mean, when you have your sessions, presentations, and all these information available, then tracking back, this is much easier in the electronic, let's say, platforms. And innovation in the sense that because of the unique demanding resources and conditions, for example, in the African context, we have seen a huge experience. This was a fantastic good practice of the Secretariat, the supporting institutions like UNDP and several national governments, and the African delegation, that they all met. They sent some of their delegations to Sharm el-Sheikh, the Egyptian resort, but also used for such meetings, so that they were able to interact as an African group much easily. The important thing is that, for example, this was not experienced in the climate in the biodiversity negotiations. So, and in that hurts the negotiation in biodiversity. So the presence of an African hub definitely helped to improve the process. Or again, in this platform, we had self-networking opportunities. We could invite people to join the multi-level Friends of Multi-Level meeting. There were some people, some delegates we have never had met before. So there are a lot of new tools that we can benefit. This is the virtual element. Then there's the substance. There are so many subjects, from technology transfer to finance, from loss and damage and all this stuff. In most agenda items, there have been progress in terms of better clarification, some papers, informal papers. But obviously, the bottleneck of the Paris Agreement is this issues like climate finance, the lack of availability of this 100 billion accessible, flexibility mechanisms. Nobody knows how this will be transferred from Kyoto era to the Paris era. Transparency, the communication of your commitments, how much you're getting for closer to your commitments, and loss and damage. These are really hard, challenging topics that needs really political power. And with or without a physical or in-person or virtual meeting, this needs political mandates. That's why G7, G20, or other ministerial sessions are more important than whether this discussion is held in person or virtual. So we need political ambition on that. Third, in the agendas, in the discussions, we're seeing more and more the parties are aware that there is a new set of indices coming up from Dominican Republic, from Japan, from US. Inside this document, there are references to local and regional governments. But the existing structure of the Paris Agreement mechanism do not address this as that detailed. So that we're in a transition phase. There will be more and more demand and the necessity to hear from local and regional governments because they are already in the indices. So that is a good feeling, because this will make us feel that we are part of the process. We're in the same engagement. Of course, decision making at the party level, but contributions are from across the world and across all levels of government, especially agendas on capacity building, action for climate empowerment, arrangements for intergovernmental meeting. These are expanding the notion of local and regional governments, but also other stakeholders as well. The more we have seen more NDCs with multi-level engagement, we are in expanding our friends of multi-level action. There are new countries coming on board, which had not been involved in this process. So that's also making ourselves, we are seeing very clearly that there is a growing community that embrace multi-level collaboration. And finally, since the beginning, we have submitted our texts, we have submitted our interventions, we have suggested positions, we have suggested ideas, and this was well received by parties, by the Secretariat and other stakeholders. So LGMA, whenever LGMA is speaking, there are a lot of respect that our inputs are valued, and that's why it is important that we spend time and put efforts into these documents so that communicated to outside, especially LGMA Global Task Force. We are all aware that climate space is not in an island, it's not isolated. Because we are so strong in other space like biodiversity, SDGs, high-level political forum, we can share our experience into the negotiators of climate process, saying that, look, this is a good practice here. Why don't we embrace it here? And this is really helping a lot because there are a lot of delegations appreciating this kind of work. As I said, all of those, to the extent possible, are on the web. Some of the sessions are not available. Unfortunately, they were in the platform. We're expecting also the UK presidency to share some of their links, especially on logistics and others, but most of them are available, and the website of LGMA, citiesandregions.org/COP26 will also be updated with this information soon. So now we are getting a bit more closer to the next steps. Actually, what we are proposing as ICLE as the focal point, but we will develop it all together as LGMA community. The starting point, when we left Madrid, we were asking for 2 words of multi-level action. And at that time, December 2019, the scene was not so bright. It was not so clear that there will be so many interactions. For good or for worse, pandemic conditions helped us to embrace the role of local and regional governments and innovative thinking. So we have seen all these things coming up. So I think what we are now in the final stages of COP26, knowing that there will be decisions, there will be outcome declarations, we have to consolidate all these 7 pillars into much more outcome-oriented positions and elevating it now to the text-based proposal so that we can communicate with our friends. The first thing is that we should emphasize the multi-level action should be the new normal. There are several countries who are doing this, but we should make sure the political outcome should embrace, should encourage, should invite all parties that multi-level and this is the new normal. Therefore, a vision like that would be helpful because having it in the Paris Agreement is one thing, but making it implemented, the multi-level collaboration is another thing. And we are in that phase now. We're in the second phase of Paris Agreement. We have seen that if governments engage local and regional governments, they can be more ambitious, they can be more confident about their being on the right track. Second, multi-level collaboration is a political agenda. It's the political bodies of our constituency at home and globally. But urbanization is a technical work. It is in fact one of the sectoral climate mitigation and adaptation areas, be it urban heat islands, be it climate-friendly urban planning. So we would like to embrace this idea, and this connects with our discussion with the Urbanization Ministerial. Just like we have seen agriculture as a theme, just like we have seen loss and damage as a theme, we would like to see sustainable, integrated urban and territorial development as a core climate action area. And maybe we could start to think about a Glasgow global program for urbanization. And in that discussion, Article 6.8, the non-market mechanism, is a very, very excellent opportunity for us because the new urbanization that will come, especially in the new emerging countries, there will be cities that have not been even existing today that will be built in the next decades. So obviously, a mayor and a local government can only lead a city that they are mandated. A new city is not in the hands of the current mayors. So we have to work with the national government so that, and this 2030 targets, all these climate disasters, we cannot handle on our own. Therefore, this urbanization as a sector can be a theme that we can embrace in Glasgow onwards. And third, just transition and inclusive action, holistic action, nature-friendly climate action. These are the descriptions of making climate action beyond just GHG emissions or reductions, but much more a new way of 1.5 degree compatible lifestyle, which has to be visible 2030 and make sure that it is across the world in 2050. So that notion should be embraced in the outcomes of COP26, be it our summit outcomes or in the COP outcomes. And finally, we have seen that the more, as this is a result of being a part of the process, that we cannot act just a voluntary. We cannot take it as light. We have to take this process serious. And especially now that we're in the NDC so intensely involved, we should be tracking all UNFCCC agenda items, all UNFCCC bodies, from technology transfer to agriculture program, from Nairobi Work Program to education training and capacity building. We have to be much better prepared as networks of local energy governments, be it with our members, but also in the processes, in the global discussions. Therefore, we need a much robust, much more, let's say, much more active engagement of all the networks into this process. Therefore, one of the outcomes we would wish to see is that LGMA is much more dynamic and actively engaged in all the agendas. There are a lot of areas that we have not been engaged because of our lack of capacity, but with this new way of work, we can say that now in the second phase of NDCs, we are much more involved in all agendas of COP. So we are coming now towards the end of our 2 slides, actually. What to expect in the next couple of weeks. So as you have heard, we asked for a meeting of the COP25 Bureau. It was not a given thing. At the beginning of the May sessions, there was no schedule for a COP25 Bureau. It's not just because of ICLE or LGMA put forward for it, but it was a demand from others, but it was an important thing that the presidencies responded to that. However, we don't know the outcomes yet. We don't know what has been discussed then. And the next couple of days will be important, next days and weeks. You are hearing that UNFCCC Secretariat is announcing several deadlines. So each of them are important. And because there are still a lot of ambiguities about physical or virtual elements, we should be prepared for even the existing announcements to be updated with sometimes even 180 degrees different announcements. So what could be happening in the next couple of days and weeks? 29th of June is the day when Blue Zone, the accreditation restricted areas, side events will be compiled. We encourage local LGMA members to apply as much as possible. There will be a call for merging those events, that this will be a combination. We would like to work with as much as possible that series of LGMA-led events could be held so that diversity of our constituency is visible. This year, exhibits, the UNFCCC space exhibits are already announced to be virtual, and this will definitely influence the pavilions as well. 13th of June is an important date. This is the next Wednesday. That will be the moment where presidencies, Chile and UK, have invited all the governments, heads of delegations, to make a stock take about what was the outcome of UNFCCC conference, but I think more importantly, what to expect in the COP26. This means physical planning, delegation, and especially the vaccination, the elephant in the room. You may have heard G7 and G7 leadership announced to roll out, UK roll out a vaccination program. As of today, we don't know the details. As of today, we don't know whether observers will benefit from these vaccines. Even if they say yes, it's not clear whether these vaccines will be the mayors or staff of cities, whether this will be assigned by ICLE or a constituency or national governments, or even if ICLE defines the names of their delegations, who will provide these vaccines to those delegations? And more importantly, let's remember, in a vaccination process, you have to be having it at least 2 weeks of its effectiveness, at least 4 to 6 weeks of between 2 jabs. So it's like 8 weeks before you have to define the name and make sure that they are secure with these vaccines. It is also restricted to the Blue Zone accredited delegations. So the UNFCCC should also define the quota, how many will be eligible for how many constituencies. So That's a huge complex issue. Therefore, the sooner this is announced, the better. We are in touch with the presidency. We're encouraging them to make information available. As of today, there's no publicly available written information, written document. We are in formal discussions. We have some rumors, but we cannot address any official document as of today. And obviously, there's also relation to this, as we said, biodiversity process is also planning to be convened in Kunming just 3 weeks before. And the host country of biodiversity COP, China, has already announced that they don't have any plan for any vaccination. So it's impossible to think one party to or one process will have a different practice than the others in a completely different manner. So there has to be some similarities. So it's a UN process. So the outcome of the 30th of June may give us more information to all of us, hopefully. The next deadline is 2nd of July. That's the moment where commercial pavilion space, so that this is the spaces where governments or even stakeholders can host their meeting rooms or meeting platforms. ICLE and LGMA tried this for the first time in Copenhagen in 2009. At that time, it was remarkable leadership that didn't exist too much, but it became a fashion. We are very happy. But in the blue zone, we haven't done since COP26. The difference of blue zone is that it is costly. It is a commercial area. It is a luxury as such. Therefore, we have to be careful what type of a space we'd like to mobilize, how we will secure its funding, how we will manage this agenda, and what it would look like, especially who will be the audience. I mean, if there will be no one going there to COP because of the limitations of vaccines, what is the value? What type of a pavilion? Will it be a base camp? Will it be a hub? We don't know this yet, but we have to start testing this, and therefore we will work on that. The second week of July will be the discussions, political discussion in New York, high-level political forum, still virtual, of course, but SDG 13, climate action, will be one of the discussions. A week later, G20 Environment and Ministerial, Climate and Environment Ministerial will be held in Italy. It seems it will be in person in Naples, but we'll see how much it will be secured. And a couple of days later, COP26 presidency is calling for an extraordinary ministerial in London. So usually a ministerial meeting was held, what was the mission of the pre-COP. So 1 month before the real COP, there was this ministerial consultation so that they give guidance to their delegations. Here, it is 4 months before. Obviously, let's say 3 months before. That is showing how important to have political clarification to the agenda so that the delegations can prepare the outcome as appropriate. But of course, this additional challenge this year, vaccination, it doesn't need to have ministerial as such confirmation, because as we said, 8 weeks and the management of this process needs much more work. So hopefully, by the time we reach the end of July, the in-person meeting of COP in Glasgow, how many of them will be stakeholders, how many of them will be parties, this will all be clarified, and how many of them will be vaccinated. Today, we have heard that they would not necessarily ask for a prerequisite, but it's also clear if you're not vaccinated, the entrance to the UK, to Glasgow, is also bounded with quarantine requirements. So that's why it is a challenge. So a scenario, that is the last slide we would like to share with you, that we have seen the preparation for Marrakesh Partnership, which is action agenda. We just added 3 days in that is not visible in the Marrakesh Partnership, because Marrakesh Partnership is one part of the COP. COP is beyond Marrakesh Partner. COP is beyond Race to Zero. Therefore, Marrakesh Partnership is only one part of the picture. So if you look at now, first thing is that the COP is extended by 1 more day. So the COP is officially starting on the 31st of October, 31st of October, Sunday. And what we are expecting that there will be the first 2 days, heads of state, leaders, just like Paris. And during these moments, there will not be side events. There will not be virtual or even physical spaces for exhibits and others. There may be roundtables with Race to Zero and Race to Resilience or other structures. And then the rest will be action agendas and the negotiation agendas. What we are expecting in a hybrid model, knowing all the challenges of vaccines and others, a scenario is very likely that the main purpose of COP is to give the mandate to the new presidency, which is the UK. And this can be done by any delegation who's carrying the flag of this country. For this, you don't have to ask people to travel from their countries to international travels. There are embassies in London. It may be possible that the ambassadors in London can be assigned by their respective national governments to bring the flag of their countries to a meeting in Glasgow. This will be not an international domestic travel. Sorry, it will not be an international travel. It will be a domestic travel. The residents of the embassies are also applying or complying with the domestic vaccination procedures in the UK, which of course is much better because it's the same in other countries as well. In the domestic case, you are much more flexible. So the delegations could be, instead of the UK, instead of the national governments, that could be ambassadors. On the first day, they can elect COP26 presidency, Alok Sharma as the president, and they can say, now we are going to the heads of state agenda. We will have in-person physical presence of leaders. And once they're over, they can say, now we are going to virtual level. Now the sessions are suspended for negotiations. We will continue in the next in-person meeting because we don't have anyone here or limited or less than the diversity that is needed. The sessions will not result in negotiations, but there will be updates, announcements through the virtual elements. That could be a scenario we can expect for. And under this condition, if there is a roundtable on race to zero, obviously we have cities race to zero, we have cities race to resilience and other processes. There may be several mayors, governors, regional, local leaders attending to this roundtable, hopefully. And some would also be present in the business cities and regions and built environment action day on the Thursday. And if it is virtual, obviously, the engagement with City of Glasgow, how will we use the presence of Glasgow city chambers, will all have to be discussed together. So this is a scenario where we could think about a physical presence at the beginning, very representative, not massive. The rest of the agendas to be virtual, which is much more inclusive, much more encompassing. And that could be the formulation for a COP in Glasgow, but as well as a model that could be applied or replicated in China as well, that in the biodiversity COP. And we are hearing more and more, this is becoming a reality. Unfortunately, those scenarios that I've shared with you, you cannot find anywhere as a written document. So if there is anybody who can challenge that we are giving you a wrong information, I can comfortably say that, yes, I may have heard, because I cannot show you any link at the moment. Therefore, we are taking the responsibility that this is a scenario, this is an assumption, it may be wrong, because there are a lot of things that we don't know, and there are a lot of things that may change even hourly. So this is a vision that you can expect. And all these upcoming events in July will continue with the Regions 4 Summit, the UK summits in Net Zero conference, LGA conference, Africa and Asia Pacific climate weeks will happen virtually. And we'll see the whole urban October elevating our voices of local energy governments. With this, let me conclude and give a break. I've seen several inputs came into the question and answer box, but let me go through it. If you wish, you can raise your hand and ask the floor so that you can interact. We can give the speaking rights as well. But while you are thinking of your engagement on interventions, let's read the Q&A inputs. So we have two questions or inputs in the question and answer box. Actually, it's one from Seth. It's great. Seth Schultz is a long-time friend of us from C40, from Coalition for Urban Transition, from Cities IPCC. He's now leading, as far as I remember, Resilience Shift. Seth, correct me if I'm wrong. So hi, good to see you, Seth. There's another input from Chico Helois. I assume, Chico, you are from Regions 4, our partner in the LGMA, for a long-time partner, Regions 4. She writes, will we have a more detailed version of the key message for the multi-level action COP and roadmap that we will carry together at the COP? If so, how can we review them? Would it be through the LGMA working group? Exactly, that should be through the LGMA working group. I've seen also the messages from Natalia. Let me apologize that I couldn't respond to her. Heloise, I was waiting for this kind of some clarity, and you have seen in the way we were engaged in the LGMA, and the process was limited. Those already only who were accredited. So definitely we would like to elevate. We have to change gears, and we would like to particularly discuss with all of you how to go from 7 pillars to this 4 cornerstones, 4 outcome-oriented process and proposals. And that was also raised by Eva from CMR from the Europe as well. So there's a lot of partners who are now ready to embrace and join this process. So definitely in the next couple of weeks, we have to come together with these clarifications, more making our lives much more easier. Could you let us know if ICLE or LGMA would apply to side events next week for the COP? Yes, we encourage all LGMA members to consider applying to COP. There are certain limitations. Every organization can apply for one event. For example, ICLE is a global network. We have regional secretariats, but only ICLE World Secretariat is accredited to the process. There are several partners. For example, Climate Alliance has Climate Alliance Italy, Germany, Austria also registered, or UCLG Africa. So each organization has different accreditation process. It has advantages and disadvantages. We would encourage to diversify as much as possible. From ICLE point of view, we would like to present a side event which focuses on this LGMA roadmap towards 2030, time for multi-level action. We're happy to talk with you. It could be a combination of us, other partners, but there may be other events. So we encourage. I can share with you once again, we had this shared file where we have mapped our side event application for the UK zone. We can bring back this and we can start to map the applications for blue zone of the UNFCCC as well, and we can track this. It would be good to share among us. Yes, sharing would be I will send the link to this file once again, the tracking file for the UK managed zones. We will create a separate sheet so that then we will note which applications are going through to the blue zone application for side events. Regions 4 will be applying for a side event. Definitely, you should. Excellent. I mean, Regions 4 has already been actively involved in adaptation. You are partnering. You are leading this race to resilience also at the regions level. Definitely, you should go for this kind of your inputs to the process, and we will be just enriching our activities as LGMA. So thanks a lot, Eloise. Any colleagues who would like to raise hands or provide inputs? The floor is open. You can take the floor. You can type in. Bianca. Complete information about visa process. There will be specific visa for COP. What about countries that don't need visas to entry in COP, such as Brazil, for example? So Bianca has a couple of questions. Bianca, as far as I know, you are from ICLE Brazil, isn't it? So ICLE South American Secretariat. Sometimes I'm missing the names. The second question, blue zone side events. Can regional offices apply for events from our cities in the description by ICLE World Secretariat? Green zone side events closed by March 5th. Accommodations, does it have to be settled by COP company? Can cities and and regions still buy physical spaces on green and blue zone? And there's an anonymous attendee. It says, how can staff from cities that are part of the Race to Zero try to attend COP26? Let me try to respond in as much as possible in the remaining limitations of the time. So Bianca, you are from ICLE South America Secretariat, just for the participants. So visa, what is a regular entry to UK should apply, but for COP, what we know, in addition to the accreditation letter from the Secretariat, UK government is also planning to provide a letter so that you can use this in the application. But this blue zone accreditation is always much less than the overall participation. There are a lot of colleagues who are attending green zone events, which you don't need a UNFCCC badge. If you have a UK visa, if you have able to go through the country through other processes, you can attend green zone events. But if you are only attending green zone and you are not in the UK, so you're not in the blue zone, this additional document from UK government will not apply. But ICLE and all the other networks, whenever you register your delegations to the UNFCCC, they can give you also your recommendation. At the moment, we don't know how many delegation quota will be available for blue zone and green zone definitely is much more relaxed. Therefore, this issue about visa will depend on this accreditation and quotas, which needs several more weeks to come. Blue zone side events. So ICLE, that is applying for ICLE. Because ICLE is registered as only one global organization, we have only one option of one-off application. I will recommend ICLE regional offices to check with their regional partners. For example, any organization in the regional, let's say, activities, if they are accredited to UNFCCC, I recommend that they indicate the relevant ICLE office. For example, Asia-led partnership working with ICLE South America, South Asia, or I know you are working a lot with Konrad Adenauer Foundation, so that diversify the partners, that they in the application they mention you as your partner, but in the merging process this will not be possible because we have only one entry and ICLE has 20 offices worldwide. Green zone side events, the ones that applied who have received declined, they should be declined, but the ones who have received positive, it's not guaranteed, there will be some review, and the application process is gone. Accommodations, there is a company, there are huge concerns because this company is asking for 2 full weeks without any refund, and it's obviously we cannot pay this. Nobody knows what will happen. There is a huge pressure to the UK government to ask this travel company to change procedures, but you're also able to find your other alternatives. But the accommodation is a huge bottleneck at the moment. What we are saying as ICLE is that if UK announces already now that it will not be 20, 30,000 people in COP because of vaccination issues, we should expect much less delegation, which means much less accommodation demand. And the hotels and the company, if they're informed this is the case, they can revise their existing procedures that they cannot enforce so harsh conditions. That's our proposal, but it's not in the hands of ICLE. Can cities and regions still buy physical space in the green and blue zone? At the moment, blue zone applications, pavilions are there. We will apply as ICLE will apply on behalf of LGMA, where once we secure this place, the space, we will also invite LGMA members to share slots so that they can use this opportunity. But the company also has this year a new feature that you can also reserve spaces. The challenge is that this can only be reserved by, again, accredited organizations. If you're not an accredited organization, it's not easy for you to do this. Therefore, we are asking for an LGMA space that will be applied by ICLE and other partners. We don't know whether any other LGMA members would like to host a pavilion. I must confess the prices are extremely high, by the way. And in addition to this space, you also have to contribute additional budget for technical equipment and furniture. So it's not easy. We have benefited this joint space of LGMA, and all the partners are contributing to its costs and its sharing of resources through a crowdsourcing, and we would like to continue this experience. We have done it in Copenhagen, in Paris, and in Bonn. We would like to do it again, but others are also can come up. We know, for example, Global Alliance for Building and Construction will also have a real life pavilion. There will be other pavilions as well. So let's see. It's a question of opportunities and synergies. Race to Zero participants, COP26. I think champions will provide some more guidance. For the Marrakesh partnership events, there's always a spatial quota, spatial accreditation badges. So we will see how this will be possible, but we expect them to be more visible than ever because Race to Zero is one of the flagship initiatives. There's this question from Anandan. As ICLE, is only one application for side event possible? For the Blue Zone UNFCCC, yes, that is only one, and this will be managed by World Secretariat. We are considering to organize a side event as part of, I gave exactly the same example, Asia-led partnership a couple of minutes ago, ICLE South Asia. So I recommend the partners, because ICLE South Asia is not accredited as an entity. So I recommend other partners you can discuss with. There are around 2,500 accredited organizations, and we can check. We can talk with you afterwards, which could be suitable suitable. And in the application form, they can tell that partner is ICLEI South Asia. This means that you are not able to merge, but they can show that you are a partner of this process. That gives you more eligibility in the screening process. And Anandan and Bianca is just thanking. Let's go back to participants. Anyone who raised hands? We're also coming to the close of our session. It's almost, the hour is closed. I think we should come to a conclusion of our session now. Just for colleagues, maybe I leave this screen once again. This is a scenario that an estimate from ICLEI. It's a scenario built on the information we received. There's no guarantee this will happen like that, but it is very likely we are going towards to this end if COP is completely postponed, obviously. And how much realistically this will be happening, or how much different the real case, we will see in the next couple of days. We will keep you informed through the LGMA mailings. I will share you once again, when we share this link, the joint shared folder for COP26. We will create a space for Blue Zone and pavilions as well, and that we feed each other about the information we gather, so that we come up with the best solutions as much as possible. We thank you a lot for your interest, and we look forward to. There's one input, by the way. There's one comment. Eloise, yes. High-level side event. Eloise, just send this to me so that you can send it to LGMA, and I will just approve it so that you can circulate it among the LGMA. You may have noticed UK 100 also made the circular announcement a couple of weeks ago. It's an open space, so you can announce your announcements in the LGMA mailing list. So feel free to share with us, and we will approve it immediately so that people attend. And congratulations, this event looks really impressive in terms of lineup and the agendas to be covered. So we're very happy with your leadership and networking there. Congratulations. Thank you, and take care, and have a nice day, and we'll stay in touch.